Hi, everyone. Welcome to this great conversation with the Town Team Movement OGs. We've got here with us today Jimmy and Dean, the co-founders of Town Team Movement, and keen to have a chat about your incredible journey, the growth and the evolution of the movement. Jimmy and Dean, would you like to introduce yourselves firstly?
Sure. Dean Cracknell. I'm a co-founder of Town Team Movement. Lived a long time in Perth, where I met Jimmy, and now live in Tasmania.
Awesome. And how about you, Jimmy?
Oh, Jimmy, I'm Perth boy, Perth City. Also co-founder of Town Team Movement. Jack of all trades. Play a bit of music, do a bit of things. But looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, great. Thanks, guys. And my name is Kendell. I also work for Town Team Movement. I've joined the team officially a few years ago, but have been an avid supporter since 2018 when things officially kicked off. But I thought it would be really cool today, especially for people who haven't heard about the movement or doing co before, just to learn about how it all started. Where did this idea come from, and how has it turned into what it is today?
So I was living in a neighbourhood here in Perth in Highgate and Mount Lawley for about 5 or 6 years. And my wife and I decided to leave Perth and leave this neighbourhood and go and live in the UK, potentially forever. So we were having no plans of going back to Perth. We had a great time overseas, but 6 months later things hadn't worked out the way we thought, so we came back to Perth. And I remember, it was a sense of disappointment, a bit of a failure. We'd intended to go and live somewhere else and commit somewhere else. And here we were back in Perth. And I remember actually being outside hanging up some washing, and this thought came into my mind, well, if I'm back here, you can either be disappointed or complain about it, or you can do something. And this wasn't a conscious thought. It just popped into my mind. And the thought was, I'm going to get involved in my local community. And I'd never really thought of that before. I don't even know where that thought came from. But there was I hanging up some washing, and my wife came out, and I said this to her, and she said, oh, that sounds good. I'm going to do the same. So that was a bit of a life-changing moment for me. And so I did a bit of research and heard about this group called the Beaufort Street Network, and I knew nothing about it, and I'd been living in this suburb and heard of this sort of street festival that had been going on for a few years. So I found out this group, and I thought, well, I'll just go and introduce myself and say hi and see if that might start my journey. And I met some incredible people, and they invited me to a few events and to a meeting. And so in the few days before the meeting, I thought, well, I might go with an idea or two. And I was an urban planner working in local government, so I went with a bit of an idea of, I want to get involved into the community, and what would that look like? But had this idea of doing an action plan where community members could actually get out and do some change in their local place. And I'd been working in local government for 6 or 7 years, knew how to present an idea, and fully expecting, oh, that's a really nice idea, Dean, but thanks, or we're already too busy. And to my surprise, they said, yeah, go for it. And I was like, what do you mean, go for it? Like, I was so shocked that someone would actually be encouraging. So I went home and wrote an action plan over the weekend, and a group of us just started doing things. And of course, they were already doing lots of things themselves, including this massive street festival. So I got hooked really, really quickly, and I met some awesome people and had a lot of fun. But I've started to feel like, I could belong and connect, and I could like this place. Perth didn't have to be somewhere I wanted to leave. It could be somewhere I wanted to stay and really get involved. So it was such a great journey. And over a few years, we started doing things, and other people would start asking us questions, well, how did this festival start? Or we want to do something similar. Can you come and talk to our local government? Can you help us? And this guy's name kept popping up, this guy, Jimmy Murphy. And I was like, oh, sounded like a bit of a mysterious celebrity kind of guy. And coincidentally, a year or so later, Jimmy had been reaching out to a number of these groups in the local area, and he was an elected member or a councillor at the time, and he sort of started to see how we could connect and learn and help each other. So I remember meeting Jimmy at the pub and this conversation about how these local groups could work better together.
Awesome. So you're transitioning from your sort of professional and government-based roles into positions and roles that are more community-centric and community-focused. And so enter Jimmy Murphy. What happened next?
Yeah, well, around sort of the same time that Dean was mucking around with the Beaufort Street network, causing a lot of fuss over it there. I was actually like a local promoter and nightclub promoter in my local town, Leederville, which was kind of the next one over from where Dean was in Highgate, Mount Lawley. So, and one day I had a bunch of local traders and residents approach me, and they're like, "Oh, all this cool stuff's happening in Beaufort Street. We want to do it here in Leederville." And I was like, "Oh, that sounds fun." And then they're like, "Oh, yeah." And we managed to get this money from the council to put on a street festival, but we don't really know how. And you're the local promoter in town, so you can help us do it. And I was kind of like, "Oh, okay, that sounds really fun." So, you've got money. I don't have to sell any tickets. We can just have a big party in the street. Awesome. And then, we basically, but they said, "Oh, the catch is that we've committed to do it in 2 months' time." So I had just over 2 months to pull this giant street party together. But we managed to do it, and it was an incredible process of basically kind of having this, it was almost like a facilitation of an event. So it was a whole new way of doing stuff. It was like drawing out everything in the community and putting it in the street. So literally the businesses, but then also like residents, their stories, local artists, musicians, stall holders, creatives. So it was a magical experience. And we put on this street party, and 20,000 people showed up, and it was a big success. And I was like, "Oh, wow, this is really, really interesting." I was kind of quite intrigued by, this sort of community, everyone working together, because it was sort of local government working with business, working with residents, working with creatives to create, this marvellous thing. And so we started, planning other things like, what naturally happens with this work. You get inspired and invigorated. And at the same time, I was sort of going through a personal transition. So obviously can't always be a nightclub promoter for your whole life. And I just had a baby with my my partner, and was like, "Oh, geez, what am I sort of going to do with myself," kind of thing. And I was spending a lot of time just thinking, and I went through a very long couple of years process of sort of analysing the way I saw the world and how I could contribute to it and have a sense of fulfilment. And I basically came up with this I found this theory that was actually coined by Steve Jobs, which is called creativism, which is sort of looks at the world as though everything is a creation and everything is created. So it's kind of quite an interesting way of looking at the world. And then while I was sort of exploring this concept, the street parties were still going on. So it was probably the second or third year in. And I remember I sort of had a similar epiphany where I was like, "Oh, wow, the work that we're doing here on the ground in community and creating opportunities for people is the work. Like this is really, really important what we're doing." And I started similar to Dean, kind of had a moment of like, I'm going to commit to this because I believe this is what the world needs. I'm skipping over a lot of stuff. There's also the question of why isn't anyone doing anything about climate change? Why does society feel so stuck? Why is everyone, and then as Dean said, I was voted on council during that time as well and experienced how hard it was in government to do anything and how resource poor they are, but how everyone expects government to do everything, but they basically don't have the resources or ability to solve everyone's problems. And so it's like, well, we need to solve our own problems. So essentially, I started to reach out to all the other groups because, there was a lot of us in neighbouring towns that were inspired by what Dean and the Beaufort Street Network were doing, and we were just organically setting up all these groups. And I started getting asked to help them to do other street festivals in particular. So we started doing a street festival in Vic Park and Mount Hawthorn and Subiaco and all the sort of inner city areas around inner city Perth. And then I was like, oh, geez, we need to kind of start organising ourselves better here because, everyone is trying to do their own thing, but all having the same problems. It's kind of like trying to raise the funds, trying to work with council, trying to manage and support a volunteer base, and then not saying that we were sort of sharing information or ideas or know-how. And so that's when, basically we started reaching out to people like Dean and a few other key leaders who I knew were doing awesome stuff in the area. And we started, basically meeting at my kitchen table in North Perth at the time. And we started planning out what is now Town Team Movement, an underarching organisation to support, what we call local doing now. But back then it was, just doing cool shit.
What I love about the story is that it's just this awesome collision of, this unlocking of vibrancy and culture and local storytelling in place, which was just, so needed in so many places here in Western Australia. And people were really craving it. And so as soon as you guys started to unlock that, the interest sparked by so many other local people who were inspired but just maybe never felt they had the permission to act or to contribute in their place. And, with your shared local government experiences, you were able to navigate a path for them and others and sort of shine that light. And I just wanted to maybe explore that a little bit further in the context of what a town team is. Like, how do you support that structure and what is that structure now?
Yeah, so I was working as an urban planner in local government for 12 years understood from the local government perspective some of the problems that they had. And there's so many amazing people in the community, but, often the local government hears from the people with complaints or what shouldn't happen. So that was my daytime world. And then in this volunteering, with the Beaufort Street Network, we had different challenges. How do we organise? How do we raise funds? How do we engage with our local government? And there just sort of seemed to be so many opportunities for conversations and connections and collaboration between local government and local communities. So the town team model sort of emerged organically. And I remember after we started having conversations about the need for this kind of organisation to help promote this and inspire this and support local doers, we started to think about what a town team actually was, because at the moment, at that time, it hadn't been documented. And it took quite a few conversations, I think. Is it this? Is it that? What's special about it? What's different about it? And over a period of time, we worked out a town team charter, and that was based on some common sense principles, but, we need some simplicity in the world sometimes. And these principles were around being positive. So we're about making things happen, not complaining against what shouldn't happen. Proactive in that we're making things happen as opposed to just advocating for it to happen. Apolitical in that we're not taking sides in mayoral or political campaigns, which is all well and good, but that's just not the town team spirit. Action focused. about good, sensible ethics, being respectful and honest and having integrity. So, these aren't rocket science, these principles, but by putting it together in a charter, it really helped to say what a town team is and isn't. So when we started to have conversations with other groups and other people and in the local governments, we could say, well, this is what a town team is, and if you want to register for free, we're happy to help you for free, but this is what a town team is not. And I think it gave a lot of confidence to the right people to start engaging and to join this movement of doers, which was emerging, but also gave a lot of confidence to local governments that this wasn't the normal stock standard adversarial complaining culture. This was something new and special, and I think that helped to build confidence and connections with local governments, and they saw the potential and they saw the need in their own local area for this kind of new, old way of doing things.
Yeah, and so I think part of the charter as well has helped shift mindsets from that, that passive consumer mindset that, these things should be, community should be done to me and for me. And in really what the charter has, enabled to happen is to give people permission to think, all right, well, how could I solve this problem together with others, like-minded people? Jimmy, did you have anything you wanted to add from that perspective?
Yeah, I was thinking, and hats off to John Alexander in the UK, who has been talking to us about this, and he produced a beautiful book called Citizen: The Answer to Fixing Everything Is All of Us. And I think, that's exactly what you've picked up on, is that, governments have responded to what John calls the consumer story, which is essentially institutions and governments exist to serve people, and the people complain usually, or just tell them how they should be served. So, whereas and when Dean mentioned new old ways of doing, it feels like ancient, but 100 years ago, you'd have a plethora of community organisations that would do a lot of the community work, and we would sort of do it ourselves essentially, and we wouldn't be relying on government to do everything. And I think that's an important distinction of what a town team is. We sort of operate, basically off the goodwill of good people in any community who want to contribute and make it their place better and help shape their place. And the goodwill being not only the volunteers themselves, but the goodwill of the local businesses and the other community groups, and building up that old school community connection and action, which is very different. It's an extension of what John calls citizenship. We call it local doing, and as opposed to that consumer story, which is transactional, and you pay for what you get, and you pay your taxes, and then you get clean parks, gardens, roads, and whatever. This sort of sits outside of that, which is a little bit hard to get your head around at first.
Yeah, and I guess different to other special interest groups or, traditional type community organisations. This is a group of both residents, local business owners, and people with interest in the context of place, right? So it's encouraging people to actually come together on that idea, and how do we enhance that together. And I think that's the really sort of special part of town team movement, because it does unlock that agency, and people really care about place. That is the common interest that they can come together on to contribute and to remember what it's like to participate in community life. So it started in 2018. It's grown exponentially since then, over 180 town teams, over 150 in Western Australia, over 50% of those in regional WA, and some international, some interstate as well. Tell us a little bit about how the movement's grown since it started, and what's happened and what you've learnt.
Well, I think when we first started, we could have fitted everyone who was interested in this idea around Jimmy's kitchen table, which was literally how it sort of started, with 8 or 9 people sort of having some commonalities and trying to work through this idea of what a town team is and what town team movement is. And I have never counted the number of doers and supporters and champions in the movement for a long time, but you'd be in the thousands now. And I think this is the right idea for the times that we live in, and we've had so many incredible people support us and organisations, and people like yourself, Kendell, who have supported us from the sidelines or got involved in a partnership sense or helped out with particular things. So I think the biggest thing that's changed is the number of people, and as the momentum is built, it's become more exciting, and that attracts more people, and the momentum builds. But Kendell, how did you get involved, or what attracted you to this thing?
Oh, great question. So my first experience of Town Team Movement was through the partnerships lens with RAC, who was one of the founding partners of the movement, gave them $10,000 for their first conference, and was the first institution really to place trust in this movement and that idea. Big shout out to Patrick Walker, who was my executive manager at the time. And this wonderful partnership landed on my desk. And so I got to work with Jimmy and Dean in bringing that to life, and then evolving the movement through that partnership. And really, I guess a lot of that work was based around trust building, because RAC is the Royal Automobile Club of Western Australia. They have over 2 million members, I believe, now. And so, a huge portion of the state. And so, they had a lot of interest in creating safer, more sustainable and connected communities for Western Australia. So we got to explore that idea together through the context of place, and actually utilise some of that member dividend to go back into the communities that these members represented through things like the Connected Communities Fund. And what that did is that gave these communities they presented them with, firstly, trust, secondly, cash, to then enhance place and make it more vibrant, make it safer and a better place to live. And that then influenced state government in Western Australia and local government, because RAC is one of the most trusted brands here in the state. And that was really, really powerful and influential, and went on to bigger and more exciting programs as well that the movement now offers. Isn't that right, Jimmy? You've got a pretty great story about how Streets Alive evolved off the back of all of that.
Yeah. I did want to just add, though, one of the amazing things I think, for me in terms of that town team growth was seeing how once we got into the regions, and actually it was you, Kendell, I remember you helping me with the pitch to RAC to start funding town teams in the regions. And just sort of when we finally arrived there in Dowra, and we did the legendary Dowra do-over, where we got all the community involved in placemaking projects, and they came up with all their own projects and did it out there in the wheat belt of Western Australia, and then it just sort of took off from there. And now we've got more regional town teams than we do in Perth here in the main metro city, which is pretty incredible. And then I think that's definitely seeing the town team model get picked up so enthusiastically across the regions, has piqued the interest of the state government in particular, because it's obviously now a statewide movement and relevant in their eyes. And off the back of that RAC partnership, where we were, that vision, that wonderful vision that RAC does have for Western Australia, safe, sustainable and connected, and working with RAC to fund projects within that vision through the town teams. And they were doing everything from road murals to creating parklets and putting seats in town and creating artworks and, even, little playgrounds and all sorts of things in their towns, expanding on what we built there with the RAC, and Patrick Walker again helping us pitch it to Main Roads WA, to up the ante, so to speak, and increase the funding of that work. And to our surprise, them agreeing to that, which was, the birth of Streets Live, which is a program that now gets funded by the state government $1 million a year to support town teams and other groups, any groups, aligned groups, PNCs or community groups who have an interest in active travel and slowing down traffic and making safer, more vibrant neighbourhoods and town centres. There's money there for them to be able to access to implement their idea for their place, and we're only 2 years into that program, and the results have been quite incredible.
Yeah, and I guess reflecting back on that, Dean, I remember you always say that you set what felt like a hugely ambitious target back in 2018, or that maybe we would have 50, or was it even as ambitious as 100 town teams, and that just felt like you were really shooting for the stars. But to see that then occur and then go well beyond that, and to now have the trust of state government agencies, of very prominent institutions, how does that feel? And I guess what's your reflection on the movement as it is today?
Yeah, I think as you've both spoken about, it's people and relationships, and these are just ideas without the people and relationships and support behind us. So it's been just so incredible and so moving, really, to have, institutions and leaders at all levels, supporting us. And yeah, I remember writing our first strategy to present to our board at the time, and having an aspiration in a couple of years to have 100 town teams. And I actually remember laughing when there's no way we're ever going to get 100 town teams. I think we might have been 30 or 40 town teams, and I was like giggling away, going 100 town teams. Yeah, that's what we'll be in 100 years, in a couple of years' time. And it seemed laughable at the time, but a few years later, we actually got to 100 town teams, and we did a thank you event in the Beaufort Street car park to go back to where it all started, and that felt like a big achievement because we were a small team at the time. And since then, things have really grown, and I think the biggest thing that we've grown is our team that work for Town Team Movement now, and brought in exceptional people with a lot of dedication and different skills that we didn't have. So we've grown our team, but we've seen so many people start or join town teams as well. And starting in West Australia now, there's town teams in all the states of Australia and in New Zealand and Poland and UK and US, and I think the next stage of our journey is about how we help people wherever they are in the world, and whether they're in the inner city or in suburban location or in a regional town. There's people all around the world who would be excited about this and could learn from us, and we would love to learn from them as well. So I think the real power of this idea is its simplicity, but also its flexibility. It can happen, in the most densest suburbs in Australia, or in a tiny country town. So I'm excited about the potential of the movement to help more people in more places. And as the movement grows and more people join, we learn from them, and the whole momentum grows. So looking forward to the next stage of the journey.
And with the growth of Town Team Movement and thinking about all of those, there's so many rich insights that you have and the movement has unlocked, firstly from the community lens and this idea of, passive consumer behaviours versus active citizenship. What's the differences? How can we unlock that? And then from the government and institution perspective around, what are their challenges? And how do we help improve that relationship between community and the government through building trust and a shared responsibility? Just wondering if we could explore some of those key learnings, maybe firstly around community and then into government.
Yeah, well, I think it became pretty apparent to us fairly early on in the piece that, because there was this sort of explosion of excitement when we started Town Team Movement, and we were getting a lot of people like excitedly contacting us and, oh, can you come and start a town team in Sydney, or can you come and start a town team in Canberra? And we'd, jump on a plane and fly over there and, work with the community. We sort of developed a process to engage the community, work with them to help them organise and hopefully start a town team. But sometimes they didn't want to do that, but most of the time they would. And so we were sort of flying around setting up these town teams across the nation, and we kind of realised because then we would fly back and, it would be particularly hard for those groups to do this work, as it is hard, for any sort of group, volunteer-based group doing anything anywhere. But as we further, we went in Western Australia and we started, we were building in these programs to help find funding. We were also started, Dean started writing education courses. We were, doing a lot of work, working with local governments to help them understand the benefits of working with their local community, to try and loosen the reins a little, to try and help them navigate approvals, to help them find funding to do stuff, and just help giving them more permission and support. The more work we did in Western Australia, the easier it became. And then the easier it would become, the more people would then want to do it and not get disillusioned. And so we realised that this is actually possible when you can create an ecosystem where, the local system doers are working in tandem with the local doers on the ground. And I think that was when, we sort of pared back flying around, starting town teams willy-nilly, and we're a lot more intentional in terms of let's really create, let's work on creating this ecosystem and ways of working together to get better outcomes and make sure that people are left with positive experiences, because it can get very difficult when you're isolated and you don't have peers doing this work and you don't have supportive local government. It becomes difficult, and part of our charter is that it's fun and positive and meaningful, and we've done a lot of work in reducing those barriers, even in the way that we operate as groups, and the psychological barriers that we can put up, and just cultural barriers that assume that we can't do this. I think that big learning is that we need to be working together for this to really work.
Yeah, and if you sort of unlock this active citizenship and hope in people to contribute, and then they interact in place and want to engage in the public realm, and then the local government aren't necessarily ready for that or supportive for that, or those conditions haven't been created yet, that can be quite disempowering, and it can increase things like apathy. And Dean, I think lots of the education that you've done is really on that other side, that government side, which is about creating those conditions to enable the active citizenship to thrive on this side. What are your sort of key learnings around that so far? And what's the real opportunity, I suppose, for any government professionals or even institutions listening about how they can, challenge themselves on how much they actually trust communities to deliver?
Yeah, you could imagine, if you've met a few neighbours or some people in your local area and decided to try something or to do an idea, and then you go to the local government and you don't get an answer, or you get told no, or you get told, no, we're going to do it anyway, we've already got this planned, or it's already in the budget. How dispiriting that can be. And I think that's a real challenge out there at the moment. But equally, local governments want to do great ideas as well, and sometimes they don't get a great response from community. So I guess what we've learned is it's all about relationships and trust and teamwork. So imagine if you could have a local government who wants to do something and looking to work with the community, and the community being willing to have a go and try things and trust their local government. What that can unlock and the energy and the volunteerism that can unlock. So we've found that when governments are just doing things to their community or for their community, that really reinforces the the passive behaviour of sitting back and waiting for the government to do it. Well, if they're going to do it anyway, it's not my job, so let them do it. But when local governments work with their community and are open to innovation and ideas, you do find the positive doers do step up and they do want to have a go. And you might need to work through a few details, but just in a relationship, starting off with those conversations, starting off with being open-minded and seeing how you could work together rather than saying, no, I think that's the real opportunity for both community and for local governments, is trying to start with that relationship, building trust, starting small and building momentum together. That's what we've sort of seen really works.
And a lot of the work around establishing a town team and helping people self-organise is doing that in an informal way and a formal way if they want to or when they're ready to. And it's always really exciting to see when local governments are willing to back those unincorporated groups who have an idea to do a thing, because we know that that's kind of a long-term investment, if you like, because it will not only inspire them, but it will upskill them and help them connect with others to then perhaps go on to their next doing and get more confident and, passionate about place. And some of the local governments as well that really start to shift mindsets, I suppose, from a zero risk mindset to, well, what's the acceptable risk and what's the risk if we don't let community participate as well. And we definitely have that scale of place-based approaches through a local government lens, and those ones that are really leading the way and those ones that are on their journey. And I guess that's the real opportunity that we see, is unlocking that trust and the shared responsibility to make the conditions for all this stuff to work. I thought it would be cool to touch on the scale of doing quickly. And, how that sort of scale works, but importantly, how that is an ecosystem as well, and how people on all parts of the journey can inspire each other to contribute. So, Jimmy, did you want to talk about a little bit about quick wins and just the idea of those low cost to no cost ideas? And I guess what we've seen happen as that started to be rolled out and in shifting mindsets and giving people permission to act.
Yeah, so I guess we've been doing this over 10 years now, and for some of the groups that started even before we created Town Team Movement, we've seen them go on an evolution journey, and lots of them have started doing these small quick win activities like chalk on a pavement, to owning buildings. Vic Park Collective only 18 months ago started something called the Share Shed, which is they put a big sea container in the park in Vic Park and fitted it out with tools that they now share out to their local community, which has been hugely popular. Some of the groups own caravan parks and pubs and do quite extensive things within their community. And it did start exactly what you said, with doing something small and working their agency and their confidence and their knowledge, and as that builds and builds and builds, then they just go on to the next thing. I was just on the weekend in Champion Lakes, which is down near Armidale, this incredible group, which Dean actually did a lot of work with 5 or 6 years ago, helping them adopt our constitution, which is based on an eldership model. So basically means the group don't need formal roles like secretary, treasurer, chairperson. They just have leaders, and you gave them a lot of guidance, didn't you, Dean? And now they've got their own centre. it's used by hundreds of people every week for crafternoons. They've created a bush tucker, gardens all around it. It's just this well-loved centre of the community for Champion Lakes, and all walks of life engage and participate in that incredible community. Which wouldn't have been possible without our support, which is pretty cool. Last year, knowing that sometimes it is just a spark that can build the flame and a bushfire. So we started this thing called Quick Wins Weekend, which was essentially we put a book together of 50 quick wins. So that could be anything from chalking to so it's low cost, no cost initiatives that anyone can do. Mostly without even needing local government permission. So it was something that you could just, Kendell, you could decide that you were going to, get a few neighbours together on the weekend and do a quick win. If you're interested, just go to the townteammovement.com and look, or just Google it. It was really just initiatives that can spark groups to start forming a group. But it's also, the quick wins were also really good for groups who are established, who might be having a tough time trying to get a project over the line or whatever, and can just pull out a quick win to reignite the enthusiasm, motivation, attracting people from the neighbourhood or the town to the group. It's a great way to kickstart a group as well. So, we did that last year. We picked a weekend last year. I think it was October. We did a big call out. We had over 100 groups want to participate in the Quick Wins Weekend, and we sent them all out the 50 Quick Wins book. And then over the weekend, we had a massive weekend of doing, which was super exciting. So we're going to do that again in some form this year, I think. But I think sometimes people can get a bit side-railed with their big ideas and try and do it all too soon, and that can sometimes lead to disappointment. But certainly the groups that we've seen over this journey, really develop and flourish are the ones that don't try and do everything in the first year and just build momentum and supporters and trust with their local government over years.
And, we always say small actions lead to greater change, and certainly the quick wins are the start of that journey for so many. And people might just want to do low cost to no cost ideas and do it once and that's it, or just do it a few times and that's okay. But then by being part of the movement, they're connected with others and they can see other activities going on. And then if they want to become a little bit more formal in their self-organising, then, they might have an unincorporated group, then go up to maybe they want to, tackle incorporation and maybe get access to some more money, and we can support them that way. And then, we've got the superstars like GMP 360, who are really that community wealth building end of the scale of doing, where, they're running and owning local community assets, and that's hugely transformative and really exciting to think about in terms of the role the movement can play into the future. So much has happened over those 10 years. So why is it now time to evolve, do you think, in terms of the way that the movement's supporting the doers and maybe making that more accessible to more people in terms of language and identity and storytelling?
So the town team model and approach and spirit is so important and special for us. But what we've realised is that that's one way of doing, and there's lots of other ways of doing as well. So you might be an existing community group, but might want some help or might have some great ideas to be able to share with other groups. You might want to do something small in your local street or a block party or something like that and do that as a once-off. Or you might want to open up a social supermarket like we are in Launceston. So the Townsend way is the best way, but it's only one way of doing. So we think that there's lots more people out there who would be curious about this or would want some help. So we're looking at a new name.
I think the other thing as well is that town team movement, was born out of a desire to support volunteering, and as we've evolved, and we've realised that we need a much broader approach and it's an ecosystem approach that we needed something that was more inclusive of government as well, and so it wasn't just community, which town teams kind of represents and is, but it was also a way of doing, as Dean's saying.
So the town teams will continue to exist, right? So as you say, that's one way of doing. But what the key learning is that in order to make this change happen, to really shift mindsets, to really unlock active citizenship, it's much greater than just a town team that we actually need. We need local doers, but importantly, we need these system doers, which are the champions for change in government and in institutions, so we can collectively push this agenda forward. So with local doers, with system doers, with a way of doing that can work and hopefully inspire others to contribute, who would like to reveal the name moving forward?
Kendall, I think you should.
I don't think I should. Come on.
You go, Dean.
Well, yeah, our new name, which we've thought a long time about and worked through lots and lots of ideas, but our new name is Doing Co, because we realise the real essence of what we're trying to do in the world is action, and it's about getting through the talk to the doing and helping system change makers to make policy changes or to change a culture, whether that's in local government or in a business or in a state government agency. It's about making change within the system. And at the community level, as we talked about, it's all about doing and thinking as a citizen and how you can be part of this change and how you can contribute and how important that is. So doing is so important for us, but doing it in the right way is the real special element. So the co is intentionally open-ended and a little ambiguous, but it's about collaboration, it's about community, of course, co-design, co-production, working together, teamwork. So the co is really important as well as the doing.
I love that so much. And I think what's exciting about the Doing Co is it feels like a very energetic invitation that is sort of beyond volunteering, right? It's about connecting system doers with local doers to actually think creatively and collaboratively together. And I don't think that really exists at the moment, where there is that platform or that movement that brings both parties together to solve problems. And they can, start small, as we always say, but it can grow into bigger and greater change. And that's certainly what we're seeing here in Western Australia. So I think, you can be doing small things, doing big things, doing things together, doing it for place, or, doing it for yourself or for your family. So, it's really exciting to see how that will evolve.
And it's just doing something, isn't it? Because doing something then leads on to the next thing and leads on to the next thing. And
that's
it's the
right.
journey, it's the growth. Yeah.
And I think what we're finding too is that we know and feel these are good ideas, but there's actually a lot of research in this space now that this stuff is not just important at the local level, it's actually really important for communities, of course, but also personal development. So the research shows that people flourish not through sitting back and doing nothing and just retiring, or, consuming their way and, buying as many houses as they can, or spending lots of money on material things. The best way to flourish as a human is to do all these things, is to get involved and connect with others and feel like you're part of something important. So it's so interesting that, we started this because we thought it was important, and now the research and the science is saying it is important and we should be doing more of it. So that's kind of, I think, gratifying, that, we're onto something pretty important here. And this is not our ideas, these are very old ideas, but we're just trying to give them a new energy for the modern age.
Yeah, and I think it's a lot of that research that we've been looking at, and the new sort of hypothesis behind all of that work is that top-down government approaches and passive consumer behaviours are mutually reinforcing, and so we have to interrupt that loop, because over time government has been doing more because people have been participating in community life less. And as community are participating in community life less participation in institutions and the like, their parents potentially haven't done it either. So there's this generational gap in knowledge, right? People don't know how to contribute to community. They don't know that they have permission to do it, and they lack the confidence. They don't think that they have the skills. But all skills are welcome, in place and in community life. And so helping people remember that is so critically important, particularly now. And so I think that's another really exciting thing that we're trying to share here and invite people to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think, this is essentially democracy. It's old school, original, people getting involved beyond the ballot box and, contributing on the daily to the society, to their local community, to the people around them. And if we don't do that, you can see what happens. You've got Trumpism and all sorts of, from beautiful Australia, wacky stuff happening around the world, authoritarianism, extreme politics can occur when we're not all contributing to this wonderful thing of democracy and equal opportunity.
But then there's also the loneliness and the mental health challenges and physical health challenges, and sitting at home feeling disconnected from people and not knowing how you can be involved and make a difference. So I think that's something that we're offering is hope, that you are important and you can do things and our communities can be better. We don't have to just sit back and accept what it is at the moment. And this research is showing that, individual and collective or community flourishing is an action. It's just something that we need to contribute. And you can feel better about yourself, but the community can also benefit by these quick wins or these bigger actions to improve the place. So I think we're sort of rediscovering some of these old lessons around agency and belonging and connection through doing.
Mm. And it's a positive, proactive alternative to activism, really, isn't it? Like you can contribute and you can build relationships, which I think underpins majority of what we do. Is you can build these really positive relationships and understand the channels, knowing your local member, interacting positively with your local government to then gain the influence to go on and lead and change things in bigger and other ways. It's a big, exciting opportunity. It's a big change. So what's your hopes and dreams? So if you could picture Dean back at the start writing your ambitious goal of 100 town teams in a couple of years' time, what do you both see for the future? Where do you hope this will go?
Well, like I said, I did laugh when I wrote 100 town teams back in our first strategy, and now I'm thinking even bigger. Why not tens of the thousands of doers being part of this movement? It's free to join. You're going to meet people who are just like you, passionate and wanting to make change. Why can't we be in lots of countries around the world? Why can't, we learn from other countries? And I think it's just a lot of fun as well. We are talking about some serious ideas, but this is all about fun and getting some benefits back. It doesn't have to be just giving. It's getting personal or family satisfaction back as well. So, you can be part of something important and you can be part of something bigger than yourself by joining this movement of positive doers.
Yeah, amen. I'm particularly interested, in the systems change piece too. I think, our Streets Alive program has been tackling this issue we have here in Western Australia with, speed and speeding of motor vehicles through towns and places that, have high proportion of people, and seeing the impact, only 2 years in, where we're seeing local governments reduce speed limits. We're seeing communities en masse having significant conversations with each other around their driving behaviours and wanting to reduce speed, and then seeing the impact of these initiatives in terms of pedestrians feeling safer, cyclists feeling safer. This is having a huge change on the way that we behave on the daily in our local areas. And you think, wow, if we can tackle that issue as a movement and have an impact on that, what else can we do? And it mind boggles. There's lots of interest around planting trees and bringing sustainability into towns. There's lots of interest with connecting and supporting disadvantaged, and there's so many things that we can do. So it'll be really interesting to see what impact that these local doers have across Australia.
The local
and
doers
beyond.
and the system doers.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Streets Alive is just such a great example of how you can work on a massive issue like road safety and traffic accidents and road deaths by working positively with the community. And, if it can work in that policy area, maybe it can work in health, or we know it can work in health. We know it can work in economic development. We know it can work in urban design, in community development, in sustainability and addressing climate change. So we know this approach works. It's not just us saying this as well, but by working with people, you're going to achieve better outcomes. So we can use that same methodology and same thinking in lots of different policy areas.
Yeah, I love that Cormac Russell line that we don't need more hospital beds, we need more hospitable communities. And we think about the health crisis, that's absolutely the case. And we've seen that with lots of great organisations, even here in Western Australia, with ones like Chorus and Staying in Place, and that's starting to shift as well. Well, thanks for the exciting conversation. Congratulations on everything that's been achieved so far. Is there any final words about this next part of our journey?
Keep doing.
Join the movement of positive doers.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, KT.